Today is Genesis 39 that we're looking at. And the reason we're looking at Genesis chapter 39 is I'm thinking about fake victims right now. Looks like this has been this way going back to this time in Genesis 39. There have been fake victims, people who are portraying themselves as people who are being hurt. Really, you can go back to this chapter in the Bible and you'll see that this is a hashtag Me Too movement back then. Now, let's just set something straight right here at the beginning, or at least one thing. I believe that this Bible, every word in it is true. I don't think these are stories. You say these are Bible stories, and I might even use that phrase from time to time, but when you say I'm going to tell a story about what happened to me when I'm driving to work, you're not necessarily making that up. You're telling something that happened. It's an account. I like to use that word more. It's an account. Genesis 39 account of what happened to Joseph when he's in the boss man's home, running things after being sold to slavery by people in his own family. So I'm going to go with the assumption, with the belief that these are real, quote unquote, stories, real history. I'm going with the assumption, the belief. I'm going to take it for granted. It's the phrase I'm looking for there. I'm going to take it for granted that these things happen exactly as they're written. Now, we may get some things wrong in our interpretation, but that's our fault, not the Bible's fault. So let's just start there, that this really happened to Joseph. And as he's brought down to Egypt, as an officer of the Pharaoh, captain of the guard, got some status. He brought Joseph, brought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man. And he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. So it says that Joseph is a prosperous man here because the Lord was with Joseph. But it also says he's a slave. And here I'm probably going to lose some people because I understand that when the word slave is used, or slavery, a lot of emotions come up, especially for people who are like me, classified as black or black American. I don't like these labels, but people use them. They seem to need them. And so sometimes I'm going to use them even though I don't really agree with them, because what is black? Whose definition are we using? That's a whole other conversation. But we're going to use it for the sake of this hour right now. So a lot of people who are identified or classified or self-labeled as black are going to have a lot of emotion attached to the word slavery and slave. And to some extent, the same is true of people of Hebrew or Jewish descent, or so they might say. And therefore, a lot of Christians, professing Christians and real Christians who identify with the Jewish people, the Jew, the Hebrews and Israel and all of that, they are going to get their back up a little bit when you talk about Old Testament slaves, as we call them, as the Bible will talk about servants and slaves, made to serve the Egyptians and being treated harshly and those kind of things. And I believe that some of that is a fake victimhood, as we're talking about, where the Bible right here in Genesis 39 verse 2 is saying Joseph was a prosperous man. So just as somebody who is a saved, born again, by grace through faith Christian, I've got some questions if I kind of still want to keep my wits about me and still be able to question the Lord, because I know he's going to be able to answer anything I can ask him. And one of my questions is, why does it say he's a prosperous man if everybody is saying that they were, I don't know, being whipped by cat o' nine tails, so they're going to go cook some beans and rice for the master? No, I think that sometimes when the Bible is talking about slaves, just as with the case of American slaves from Africa, as they tell us, sometimes these were just low-wage workers, not people who were just being beaten constantly every day to make bricks out of mud and clay or what have you. And I believe that's the case here, especially with Joseph, because he's living with a man of status, one of the right-hand men of the Pharaoh, apparently. He's a prosperous man, the Bible says, in his house, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. This man Potiphar, this captain of the guard, captain of the guard recognizes the hand of the Lord upon Joseph. Even though he doesn't seem to be a believer, he has enough sense to know what's going on with Joseph spiritually, just on whatever level of discernment that he's got. So he appoints Joseph as the head of all his household doings and goings. He's kind of the manager in there. Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him overseer over his house, and all that he had, he put into his hand. You got to be careful when you read the King James Bible, because it's all these he and his. You got to know who you're talking about. That's why a lot of times I don't want to go too far into mocking people who don't know about the Bible, who don't believe the Bible. But sometimes I do, because they're so smug and sure of themselves about the Bible. And then within 10 seconds of them talking about the Bible or something in the Bible, you understand they don't know what they're talking about. I'm going to mock people like that sometimes, because God's going to mock them in the end. I'm going to start right now. And it came to pass, verse 5, that from the time that he had made him overseer in his house, from the time that the master made Joseph overseer in his house and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. So just because Joseph is there and is a real believer, the Lord is blessing this house. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. But let's move on. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he knew not aught he had save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favored. Joseph was good looking. His manners were probably good. He probably knew how to talk to people. Well, he was the manager of the house. This master, this captain of the guard, Potiphar, really trusted Joseph. So Joseph must have had a lot of good qualities, physically, mentally, intellectually, socially, all of that. He had the whole package. And the Lord loved him. So he's well favored. So now we get into another fake victim here. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast his eyes upon Joseph, and she said, lie with me. And as I've said before, I know there's a double meaning there, or I believe there is. Not just lie with me in the bed, but lie with me to my husband about us. But he refused and said unto his master's wife, behold, my master wotteth not what is with me in the house, and he has committed all that he hath to my hand. Everything that your husband has is mine. He trusts me with everything. There was none greater in his house but than I, Joseph told his wife. Neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? So he turns this woman down. And of course she gets angry. Now, as I said, we're talking about fake victims here. People who are acting like they've been put upon, but they've got a great power to hurt people. They got a great power to affect things and situations, people's lives. And of course this is one of those women, because she's the wife of a very powerful man in Egypt. And you can fast forward to now, we're in 2021 now. Fake victims are everywhere now. Like, I've been noticing this since I was a teenager, at least. I think before that I just didn't know what I was looking at, where the woman, the girl, the female has been so exalted now, but at the same time she's seen as a victim and being stomped upon by clumsy, oafish men who are just trying to keep her back and hold her down. So now we've got all major in social media all conspiring. There's a conspiracy to lift Eve up, to lift the woman up. This has been going back since the first two people were here. So all the girls deserve this and all the women deserve that. And sometimes those things were not held back from the girl or the woman. It's just to get your mind in that kind of state where you're going to see them as a victim, and they're really a fake victim. Most of the world sees that as a good thing for women. When I see the victimhood mentality and the entitlement as a bad thing, ultimately, for women and for everyone. If it's bad for women, it's bad for everyone. So all this feminize the future, and a girl should be two things, who and what she wants. That stuff ultimately hurts women. I understand that they don't understand. I understand that the weak, effeminized man who is going along with these things, he doesn't understand that it's really hurting him. He's already hurt. We want to honor women, all these women's days. What is going on here? It's the devil, it's Satan, trying to exalt the feminine. This exaltation of women is not just about supporting women, it is much deeper than that. And the fake victimhood is connected to that. The hashtag Me Too movement is connected to that. You might say, are you saying that the Me Too movement is full of fake victims and false accusations? Most of the ones that you see, most of the cases that you see, they're not genuine cases. They're there to steer society, to steer the world in a certain direction. It's the course of hell. There's a course of the world that the devil is directing. And this is part of it, the fake victimhood, the exaltation of women. And as going back a little bit to when we were talking about a slave, call somebody a slave, and people get all these reactions and get their back up and get upset and feel sorry for people and those kind of things. But sometimes a slave is a synonym for a worker of some kind. And of course, if you look at us now in the 21st century, you'll see that we're slaves. Most of us, pretty much anybody listening to this message, you got access to the internet. Somebody paid for that, probably you. Somebody is a slave right now. Somebody is punching a clock and having to get up and go to work and bring some money home. That's a slave. Because if it was not a slave, if it was not a slavery, you would be able to stop. But you can't stop because the mailman, he don't stop. Or she, male woman, male person, whatever you want. And the men, most of the men now are so caught up in it, they'll fight harder for the women than the women do. The women can kind of sit back with their arms folded. We need more people that are going to help us break down the remaining walls that society has placed around women. What walls are around women? You know, Donald Trump said something about my body. You don't know what's real. You're just following all these stories. You don't even know what really happened. You know, I remember a few years ago that basketball player, quote unquote, criticized a female referee. Why does it matter if she's female? If she made a mistake and he felt that she made a mistake in her call or officiating or what have you, why is it wrong for him to say something? Because she's a woman? Why did they criticize a female referee? Because they want to put that in your mind. You better not criticize females. You might say, I read a story. Well, this is what happened. What happened was, blah, blah, blah. I don't care what the details are. What people are going to get from it is this basketball player is critical of a female. And it's supposed to scare you into not being like that if you're a man. It's supposed to embolden you as a woman to quote unquote call out a man who criticizes you, even if you're dead wrong. Why am I talking about this right now? Because I believe this woman, this Potiphar's wife, she was a fake victim and she had exalted herself. You think this is the first time she ever tried to cheat on her husband? I don't think so. I think she had probably been doing this for a while, but the normal, contented woman in a marriage is not going to just all of a sudden start trying to pick up the help. No, she had done this before. And notice, verse 11, it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business. And this is after she spoke to Joseph day by day, it says in verse 10. So she's been trying to get Joseph. And who's going to turn her down? She's probably very beautiful and she's got power. The man who's not going to be attracted to her because she's beautiful is still going to be afraid to turn her down because she's got all this power. So Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men of the house there within. She must have arranged that. You think so? And she caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out. He ran. You know, I remember there was a place I worked at. This is some years ago. I used to work in a warehouse. I worked in many warehouses in my life. And at this place, we did what was called picking and packing. Picking and packing. Boxes came down a conveyor belt and you stood near the product, and as the boxes came down with a list in it, you would see if anything from that list is in your section and you put something in the box, and then it would go down the belt. And at this warehouse there was this woman, very beautiful woman, and when she would walk by, a lot of the guys would be staring at her and kind of elbowing each other. Oh, there she goes, there she goes. Like it's like a flower turning towards the sun as she would walk by. That's what their faces were. And at that time, as I was really on fire for the Lord. And one of the things I was on fire about was not lusting. And I remember, hey, I'm a man, but I don't have to look at her as she walks by like these other guys. I don't have to look at her form as she walks by. I can make an excuse to look another way. This is what Joseph is doing here. He ran away just to get away from the lust. He didn't depend on the strength of his eyes or his hands, his will. He just got away from this woman. But that's the idea sometimes. You need to just get away from this stuff. It came to pass, verse 13, when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and was fled forth, that she called unto the man of her house and spake unto them, saying, see, my husband, she's talking about, see, he has brought in a Hebrew unto us to mock us. He came in unto me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice, straight up lying. She's straight up lying. And it came to pass, when he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled and got him out. So she told them, showed them the garment, like, oh, see, here's the evidence. I've got his coat right here. And she laid up his garment by her, says verse 16, until his Lord came home. The boss, Potiphar, comes home. She just keeps the garment there like it just happened. Like, it probably was hours later when her husband gets home, and she still got the garment with her. Like, oh, this is fresh. You got to whip up some fresh tears now, I guess, or fake tears. And she spoke unto him according to these words, saying, the Hebrew servant which thou hast brought unto us came in unto me to mock me. And it came to pass, as I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled out. So, of course, Potiphar gets angry. His wrath is kindled, and Joseph gets thrown into jail. Fake victim. She's a fake victim. But today, the CBS or CNN, with Potiphar would probably have some status. He probably would have been in the news. She probably would have been on the, she's part of the hashtag Me Too. Joseph, this preacher, this man of God, he molested her. That's what they would say. She just accused him. She's a false victim. She's a false accuser. You know, the New Testament talks about women not being false accusers. Why did they point women out to not be false accusers? Probably knew that this time was going to come. They probably knew that people were going to be affected by a woman's emotion and tears, whether they're real or manufactured. And they're just going to believe her no matter what she says. This is what feminism is going to get us. Yeah, feminism is for everyone. That's what feminism gets you. Yeah, women don't lie, right? Well, the fact is some women do lie. Again, because I know somebody's going to take things out of context, that there are women who do get hurt. And there are no good men, no account men. Yeah, they're there. One of the ways I've seen that the women are lying in our time, though, however, is that the good girl is pretending to be good. You know, you see that many people other than me have noticed this. The Disney woman who grows up and she's like a goody seemingly, and then over time she's shaving her head, tattooing up and on drugs and can't take care of her kids a few years later. And then that cycle happens over and over again. That is never, when it happens that many times, you know, it's a lie. It was totally planned that way. You know, you look at those women like the gymnastics team a few years back, when they're these kind of goody looking women, young women bouncing around on gymnastics mats, and the next thing you know, they're basically posing nude. Well, those little girls have all been looking at them. That was a plan to draw those little girls in, get them in with the goody, and then change them over to whores, basically. Good girls revolt. That is what the world wants. That's what Satan wants. And that's the empowerment that the women want. They don't understand it's ultimately going to be bad for everyone. Good girls go to heaven, bad girls go everywhere. That's the mentality now. It's the fake victims. It's fake victims. Just like this Potiphar's wife person who had Joseph thrown into prison. And even in the prison, the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy, gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And he ends up running the prison after running the house. I'm just going to stay with the Lord. It doesn't matter the lies that the world is going to tell. It doesn't matter that the lies that the world is going to tell against God's true children are going to come at me and people who do believe what this book says. and don't think they're just stories or myths or parables or hard to understand idealistic kind of tales. The world is very confused, and it's because they don't have the Word of God.